Hello, first-year string players. This is a review of Lesson 8, and this week we looked at Lord of the Strings, The Rise of the First Finger. These are 5 exercises to give us more practice playing that new note called E, where you take your first finger, your index finger on your left hand, and you place it down on the first sticker on the D string, and that makes the note called E. So as we go through these, we're going to practice not only the note E, but also all of the open string notes that we have learned up to this point. So you can see all of these lines rhyme, the titles rhyme again to make it a little more fun. We have an elf lullaby, soaring in the sky, as the victorious walk by, ogre war cry, and the all-seeing eye. So most groups got through at least the first 3. I will go through all 5. That way if you would like to challenge yourself and learn them all, you have the opportunity to do that. But I'm going to require for sure that you come back next week and know how to play the first 3. So let's jump right into it. Number 1, an elf lullaby. We are going to continue doing say it, pluck it, play it. A great progression, a great method, because if you can't say it, then there's no way you can actually pluck the notes out, right? And if you can't pluck the notes with your left hand and make sure you're on the right strings, then you definitely won't be able to do it with the bow. So you go right in order and don't move on to the next one until you have the first one down. We'll start with an elf lullaby, and looking through this, you should see that there are only 2 notes, E and D. So right away, you're thinking, wow, this is awesome because I stay on one string the whole time. This should be easy peasy. Let's go through and read our notes. Here we go. E, 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 D, rest, rest. E, 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 D, rest, rest. D, rest, rest. E, rest, rest. All right, I'm guessing that is easy for most of you at this point. We have become excellent note readers with the notes E and D. So we're going to move on now to step 2, pizzicato. So I'm going to put my instrument up, make my L, pizzicato L with my right hand, and put it up against the fingerboard, ready to pluck the D string the whole time. I'll place my first finger down on the D string on the first sticker, and of course when I'm not playing the note E, I'm just going to slightly lift that finger up so it's hovering right above, so when it's time to put it back down, it just goes right down on that string. Okay? So, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Excellent. Hopefully that was pretty easy for you as well. Some students struggled with the rests at the end of the last 3 measures because there's a lot of waiting there, and it's just as important that you know how to count your rests and come in at the right time as it is to be able to play the right notes. So maybe play along with me, rewind this and go back and try to play it with me to make sure you're sticking with me because I am counting my rests correctly. So that's a good way to check yourself. Make sure you're doing it the same as I am. All right, last step, step 3 with the bow. Of course, you're going to make sure that your bow is tightened, that you've rosined your bow before you started playing. All of those really important instructions that we talked about when we started using the bow, those stay throughout your time playing your instrument. So I have my instrument up, first finger down on the note E, bow, beautiful bow hold, in the sweet spot, ready to stay on the D string the whole time. So 1, 2, 3, ready, here we go. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Awesome, all right. Let's move on to number 2, soaring in the sky. Just a quick look through this, you should see that there are D's and E's, just like in the first one, but there's an additional note added, and that is the note G. It looks kind of green on your printout. On the screen in class, it's more of a teal color, but the other note that was not in number 1 is open G, so it's another open string note. Let's go through and read our notes. G, D, E, D. Rest, rest. G, D, E, E. Rest, rest. E, D, E, G, rest, rest, D, G, D, G, rest, rest. Hopefully, again, that's not too bad. I've been very impressed with our note reading in class, so keep up the good work if you're practicing at home, and if you're not, then make sure that you start setting a good practice routine. So, line 2, pizzicato. Here we go. Make my L. Now, if you think about this, I want you to think, how many different strings am I really on? Because we have 3 notes. You actually only play on 2 different strings, G and D, right? Because D and E share the same string. And so we're thinking I'm on between those 2 strings. Every note is either going to be on G or on D. So I'm going to get myself ready. And of course, even though my first note is not an E, I don't need to have my first finger down, I still have it hovered over the spot that it needs to go. That way when it's time to put it down, I'm just ready to roll. Okay, here we go, number 2. Ready, here we go. G, D, E, D, rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Awesome, let's move on to step 3 with our bow. Looking at this, you can probably already identify one of the harder parts that you'll have when you play with your bow. It's those last 2 measures. You go back and forth between D, G, D, G. We talked about doing those rainbows as you switch strings. You have to do that back and forth with no stop in between. So it might be helpful before you even try this one to just practice. And we talked about this in lessons, but it's not a coincidence that the music does this. The people who write lesson books are very smart, and as you progress through the book, they give you things that get harder and harder. So this is an excellent challenge, and they put it there on purpose as a way for you to practice doing some string crossings and begin to feel more comfortable with them. So make sure you're not avoiding it, even though it's tough. You all are capable of doing this. Okay, so let's play number 2 with our bow. Okay, beautiful bow hold. Set in the sweet spot. My first finger is hovered over the spot it needs to be because I don't need it quite yet, but it's there for when I need it. And I'm starting on the note G, but I'm ready to rainbow over to D. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Ready, here we go. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. 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 Excellent. All right, number 3, as the victorious walk by. Before we go through our steps, I want you to notice that at the very end of this one, there is a repeat sign, and we will practice this one with the repeat. Sometimes for the sake of time, I say skip it, but I want us to have the chance to practice repeating. So when you see those 2 dots at the end of your music, at the end of the line, it means go back and do the whole thing again. Looking at this, we have the notes D and E, of course. We've had those this whole time, all the way through. But the third note we have in this is A. And so the 2 strings you will be playing on are the D string and the A string. Depending on your instrument, those might be the 2 middle strings, they might be the 2 highest strings. Make sure you identify which strings those are for you. And so we're going to go through, we're going to say it with the repeat. So ready? Here we go. A, E, 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 D, 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 rest. A, E, 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 D, 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 A, repeat. A, E, 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 D, 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 A, E, 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 D, 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 A. Step 2, pluck it. Get my pizzicato ready on the string A, whichever string that is for you, and my first finger is ready to play the note E when I need to. Ready? Here we go. Awesome. Let's move on to step 3 with our bow. Now you may have noticed we are playing those eighth notes faster, right? An eighth note is faster than a quarter note. When you use your bow, it's going to sort of work out to being short, short, long, long. Short, short, long, long. So remember that as you are playing, those eighth notes are shorter. You have to use a little bit less bow, move your right hand, your bowing hand quicker. Okay, my bow's on the A string with my beautiful bow hold. Notice how much different this looks than when I was on G. So every string you are going to look a little bit different, and that's why we practice those rainbows, right? This for violin, viola, this for cello and bass. Okay, I have my instrument up, getting ready to play the note A. My first finger is hovered over E. Ready? Here we go. Great. So up to this point is what I'm requiring you to do for next time. Every one of you should make sure that you can perfectly play lines 1, 2, and 3 using all 3 steps. Say it, pluck it, play it. I am going to move on to doing numbers 4 and 5. This is optional if you would like to challenge yourself. You do not have to do this if you're still struggling with lines 1, 2, and 3. But if you think lines 1, 2, and 3 are actually pretty easy, then challenge yourself to learn at least 4 or 5. All right, so let's keep rolling with 4. I'll start by saying my notes, and you can see that this incorporates all 4 notes that we've learned so far today. E's, D's, G's, and A's. Okay, so here I go. E, rest. E, 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 D, E, G. E, rest. E, 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 A, D, E, G. D, rest. D, 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 A, rest. A, D, E, rest. So a lot going on there. We have lots of eighth notes that we have to be ready to say or pluck or play faster than the eighth notes at least, or than the quarter notes. And there's some rest in there, and really it jumps all over the place. But I know you guys can do this. You've been working so hard on these notes, so let's see how we do. Pizzicato. This is the second one, I guess. The first, number 1, we put our first finger down to start, and then numbers 2 and 3 we haven't had to. But for number 4, take that first finger, set it right down on the D string. Ready, and here we go. Rest. 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 All right, let's add in the bow. This is one where you may have to say it a couple of times. You might have to pluck it a couple of times and do all of those things before you feel comfortable using the bow. For the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat those things, but there is nothing wrong if you need to either go back in the video or just pause it and do it on your own and make sure you are comfortable with that. But let's keep rolling. We're going to play it with the bow. So there are 3 different strings. Stop for a second and practice what it will feel like to have your bow on each string. So before you even play, do some rainbows. You're only playing 3 different strings, so all of you have one you're leaving out. You're either leaving out E or C, depending on your instrument. So starting on the D string, first finger for the note E. You ready? Here we go. Rest. 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 Great. Okay. Let's move on to the very last one, number 5, the all-seeing eye. A lot of students had questions about this right away when I handed out the paper because we have not, to this point, played eighth notes where each of the notes was different. So you can see as you look through this, there are groups of eighth notes, the two notes connected together, but the first note is different than the second note. And that is okay. In fact, even in the groupings of 4, you could have all 4 of those notes be different, but that's another thing that we do that gets progressively harder as we continue through the lesson book. So up until this point, every time you've had eighth notes, they've been the same pitch. So if you look at number 3, that has happened with the eighth notes, and number 4, that happened with the eighth notes. 5, they're showing you it's okay if they're different, and we're going to practice doing them different. So just keep that in the back of your mind. That's why it looks sort of weird. So eighth notes can be different from one another. They are 2 separate notes. They're just connected so that they visually look a little bit neater. Okay? So let's go through in rhythm, so the eighth notes will be faster, and say our notes. And we can see actually the rhythm for every single measure is the same. It's quarter, eighth, eighth, rest, rest. Quarter, eighth, eighth, rest, rest. So let's do this. A, D. A, D. E, D. D, D. Rest, rest. A, D. Okay, again, you might need to pause and do that again, but I'm going to move on. Pizzicato. We're playing all 4 of those notes, G, D, A, and first finger E on the D string. Starting on the note A. Ready, and here we go. A, D, rest, rest. A, D, rest, rest. E, D, rest, rest. D, G, D, rest, rest. A, D, rest, rest. Okay, and with the bow. Now we already found it a little bit of a challenge to do the rainbows, the string crossings, without any sort of rest in between when they were quarter notes. Now the string crossings happen on eighth notes, so you really have to be able to do them quickly. That's what makes this such a good challenge for you. So, setting my bow on the A string, I'm ready to rock right over to D, and I have my first finger ready to put down when I need to. Ready, and here we go. Rest, rest. Now here's an E. Good, stay on D. And over to A, N. All right, so if you stuck with me to the end and you're working on 4 and 5, excellent job. Good job challenging yourself. That's the only way you're going to get better, is by putting in your practice time and being willing to challenge yourself. When something is easy, it means you're ready to move on to something harder. So I've been very impressed with all of the hard work I've been seeing from all of my groups. Work really hard on this Lord of the Strings, because next class we are going to learn a new note. So I'll see you then. Everyone have a great week.